Hi, this is video number 72. It's Father's Day today. I got the shirt in the mail the other day. Said I wasn't going to wear it until July 11th, but I saw some other people online that had them on, so I thought I'll wear this one today. And so I like it. Nice blue color there. Good message. Today's Father's Day. Father's Day we go and have ice cream. My kids take me out for ice cream, and my grandson's there, and we have a good time. Had a lot of ice cream this afternoon after church. Got a card from my son today. He brought it over to the house. It said, he always gets me a funny one. It says, "Dad, you're like a father to me." And then inside it says, "No, really, I mean that." And that's just an example of the humor we've had over the years. My son is very special. He's like my best buddy, and we just had this kind of off the wall humor since he was little, and it continues. I mean, we lost it there for a few years. I was in withdrawal. It was gone. But we still had the love for each other in our hearts. When he was little, he had this book called Big Goof, Little Goof, and that was us. Like I was the big one, he was the little one. So we really have an off the wall kind of humor with each other. We like earnest movies. The Red Green Show out of Canada. If any of you have ever seen that, is kind of like redneck kind of hunting camp humor kind of thing. Our favorite movie together probably is Gone Fishing with Joe Pesci and Danny Glover. So it's been a good Father's Day. My daughter was there too. She's my old sweetie pie still. And she always gets me more serious cards. When she was growing up in her teen years, we had some problems with each other, and so she always gets me cards that like, yes, I know we had some bad years there, but I know you always cared about me. So it's been a good Father's Day. I can't complain about it. It's been good, and the fact that I'm well again makes it so much better than it would ever have been otherwise. Let me see. I wanted to do a video before today. I think the last one I did was maybe Thursday. Friday I did a 1-minute video for the World Benzodiazepine Awareness Day. It was 1 minute. I was going to do one after that, but then I was tired. It's been hot here lately. I've been outside, so I didn't get around to it. So today I'm going to do one. The research papers that I submitted to the two scientists, psychiatrist guys. I'm getting the feeling that I may not hear back from them for quite some time, maybe ever. I don't know. I'm not sure. I hope they, at least one of them takes a look at the papers and gives me some feedback. But I'm trying to find others who have actually been through withdrawal, who have gotten well. They don't have benzobrain anymore, and they have an interest in this, and just get some of them to read the papers, maybe give me feedback. And in some respects, it's almost like you have to have gone through withdrawal to understand these two papers. The first one is understandable. The second one's a little different. They're both outside the box thinking, but the second one really is. You see what else? I'm getting also a lot of emails, and I'm hearing from a lot of people who are new in withdrawal. Some are still tapering. Some have just gotten off in the last few weeks. They're suffering terribly. And it's just, it's making my desire to find something to reverse withdrawal even greater. It's just, they got a long road ahead of them probably. Some people get well quite quickly and some don't. So it's just making me want to find an answer quicker, or at least be an instrument in someone else finding an answer to this, so that you don't have to wait so long, some of you. Okay, I have been holding a number of emails because I was doing like the spiritual kinds of videos. So I'm going to put the spiritual videos on hold now for a little bit and answer some of these emails. And hopefully I will do a third acceptance spiritual experience thing later this week. And I think probably the third one will be the last of the series, unless I get questions or think of something else to add to it. So I'll get started with the emails right now. One was from Catherine. I read a couple of hers before. Hi, Dawn. Last video regarding Bree was so helpful. I can relate to all she was saying. However, I'm 26 months off and still just as bad, if not worse sometimes. Trying to accept things, and this does not help sometimes. And this does help sometimes. Then an intrusive thought will pop in saying, you shouldn't be this bad at this stage, and everyone else will get better and I won't. I'm just so exhausted. I suppose like everyone. Sometimes feel like I've lost my soul. It feels so permanent as every day is a struggle to some degree. No 100% windows, just increased fog. It's like living in a parallel world to everyone else. Can this get worse before better? Thanks, Dawn. Okay. Few things to say about this one. I'm trying to accept things, and acceptance is very important. That's true. I've talked about that a lot. Then an intrusive thought will pop in saying you shouldn't be this bad at this stage, and everybody else will get better and I won't. Very, very. My withdrawal, that was so common. I thought mine was the mental stuff. Mine was the depression, the terror, the anxiety, and even intrusive thoughts. And your intrusive thoughts will tell you people are having windows. People are getting like time where it's obvious they're healing. And for the longest time, there was nothing. There was just nothing. And it was like my brain was telling me, you're not going to get better. I'm going to stay like this forever. You're stuck. You're going to be stuck here. But it's not true. But intrusive thoughts are very, very common. And they can be about anything. I had intrusive thoughts of all kinds of stuff. But that's one pretty much everybody has. And it goes back to the fear that this is permanent, that it doesn't go away. And it does feel that way. Excuse me. Absolutely. I've had that feeling. Everybody does. That the suffering is so intense and so extremely long. It feels so extremely long. It seems like it's impossible to get better. That your brain is what your body uses to resolve problems, to think of solutions, and it tries and tries and tries to find a solution, and it can't. And finally, it just says, well, I give up. This must be permanent. Well, that's not true. It's your brain that's the problem. It's your brain it can't find the solution because it's the problem. It's sick. It's been temporarily damaged, and it's finding its way back. So it's very much like having, and I've talked about this before, like having two brains, like one part battling the other one. It's just it's difficult, I know, but that's just an intrusive thought. It's not true. You're gonna get well. You will get well. It's just your brain just keeps telling you like you're not, but it's not true. Okay, I feel like I've lost my soul sometimes. Yes, very common. I mean, that's kind of like the spiritual part for me. It was part of the spiritual part that like God was gone. There's no, and I'm gone. It's like I'm floating around, and I don't know. It's like you know you exist, but it feels like you don't, and there's nothing. You have nothing. You almost like you are nobody. You're just a suffering entity. And that's, in many ways, that's an intrusive thought too. It's, you haven't lost your soul, believe me. It felt like mine was gone. And, after I got well, it was very, very much quite the opposite. I knew Creator was there all the time, but when you're going through it, it sounds like he's gone. It's true. It feels like he's gone. Feels so permanent as every day is a struggle. Yeah. No 100% windows. I had no windows. I just started getting better one day and gradually improved. Can this get worse before better? That's a loaded question. You get waves. People get waves, and that's where it feels worse for a while, and then you get better. And I think a lot of times when you're far out and you get a wave, you suffer so very long that you want to feel like when you get a wave, then you feel like you're back where you were at the beginning because you're just worn out. You're just exhausted. I don't think it doesn't get as bad as it was at the beginning. I mean, it can get worse in a wave, but then after waves, you typically get a baseline that's better. So I know this is hard. I know it's hard, but you'll get better. These are you're having intrusive thoughts, and you haven't lost your soul. It will all resolve eventually. Hopefully soon. I know 23 months is a long time. It surely is. Okay, the next email is from Donette. I've done a couple of hers before. Thanks for all that you do. I have suffered from OCD most of all my life. During this process, it seems to be super magnified when I am in a wave. At first, I didn't realize that it was happening, but it has. In the beginning, it was horrid. I would look at things in my environment, and everything just seems so out of place. It has gotten much better, but it's still there. My body reacts to it in a more calm way, but I am getting flashbacks or PTSD as to how it was a year ago. I need to learn how to deal with this. I try to tell myself it's just withdrawal symptoms. Sometimes it works, other times it doesn't. Just wondering if others who suffer from this have this happen. Probably a hard question to answer. It's probably one of the hardest parts of the wave that I deal with. My family didn't understand at first, and that drove me crazy also. Thanks for letting me get this off my mind. Thank you for your help. Okay, OCD, a lot of OCD and withdrawal. To a large degree, I was growing up and in my teen years, I had a lot of obsessive compulsive thoughts, maybe behavior, I don't know. I had certain things that had to be a certain way. But in withdrawal was much, much, much worse. Certain things had to be done exactly the same way, had to be a certain way all the time. My days were very, very regimented, very ritualistic. Time frames, mornings I did certain things. I had the same thing for lunch every day for like a year and a half. Afternoons, exactly the same. Sit down 3 o'clock, read my success stories, have my 2 slices of toast, have my herbal tea, take a nap if I could, get up, go, like in the summer I would like go out and water I mean, very, very, exactly the same every day. I did not stray from my routine. And it was almost like if there was any chance I would stray from it, I would just absolutely freak out. So OCD, I mean, if you're OCD before, that's a whole different ball game. My OCD before withdrawal was pretty insignificant compared to what it was in withdrawal. And there was a fear with it. If things aren't exactly this way, something, you just freak out. Something bad's going to happen, or life is not right, or something. So that's very common. My body reacts to it in a more calm way now. And she talked about flashbacks, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder from a year ago, how it was a year ago. I'm not sure. I guess that's the fear of you look back to the way it was a year ago, maybe fear that, well, gee, it's been a year already. It's not as bad as it was, but it's been a year. Am I really ever going to be well, or is this just me? And there's also the fear that, like, could I actually revert back to that? No, that doesn't really happen that I've noticed. You're healing. I mean, you're healing, and healing is all over the place. As I've said many times, there is no, it seems like there's no rhyme or reason to healing. You can get a nice window and then get a wave, and it's all over the map. So it's difficult. It's not that hard a question. No, I mean, it's all over the map. Nothing is a surprise in withdrawal. And I know that sounds, I don't know if that's comforting or not. In a way it is. I've read all kinds of things and heard all kinds of stories of people having different sorts of symptoms throughout withdrawal. Some leave, some come back. Brand new ones come like after quite a few months. It's all over the place. There really is no predicting it. Okay, here's one that I've never actually talked about this sort of thing, but I did want to get to this one. I may not get to the fourth one today, but I want to talk about this one. This is from John. He's asked me. He's done a couple emails. I've done a couple of his emails. He's asked me twice to talk about this now. He says, please talk about flumazenil pros and cons. Thanks. I don't know if I'm saying that right. It's Flumazenil. Okay, and I think he's probably getting that from, I think in Heather Ashton's benzo work. On her website, she mentions that some relief can come from taking flumazenil, which is interesting. That's interesting. What it actually is a GABA antagonist, meaning that it occupies the same binding site that GABA occupies. However, the binding site seems to have a greater affinity for flumazenil than it does for GABA. So the flumazenil blocks the GABA either completely or partially by binding to the site that GABA would bind to. So I would think, just looking at it that way, you would think that that would not be a good thing, because any GABA that is actually binding to that site and causing less anxiety, more inhibition, is now blocked by the flumazenil. So you would think, just based on that would be a bad thing, that might make things a lot worse. And it's used primarily, as far as I know, to when someone has overdosed on benzos or taken a very high dose and they're very sedated, or there's extreme inhibition to the point that you might lose your life, or it's just very extreme, they give flumazenil to block the GABA, so that it doesn't matter if the benzo is there or not. If GABA is blocked, the benzo is not going to have an effect on the GABA binding site. So it would be kind of like, if you're still tapering from your benzo, it would be kind of like doing a cold turkey, because whether you have benzos there or not, the inhibition is stopping. There's going to be more excitation because GABA can no longer bind to that binding site. And as with any drug, you can have positive or negative effects. We all react differently to drugs. Okay, I went to Wikipedia, and one of the negative effects from Wikipedia, and I think I took this verbatim, in animals pre-treated with high doses of benzos over several weeks, rapid administration of flumazenil elicited symptoms of benzo withdrawal, including seizures. A similar effect was seen in adult human subjects. So, meaning, when these small mammals in the lab, or people apparently, were treated with this, it can actually cause seizures. It can actually result in having a seizure. And it's kind of like doing a cold turkey of benzos, because the GABA can no longer bind to sites. Positive, maybe. And I found this quite interesting. After long-term exposure to benzos, GABA-A receptors become downregulated and uncoupled. Growth of new receptors and recoupling after prolonged flumazenil exposure has also been observed. It is thought this may be due to increased synthesis of receptor proteins. Meaning, your GABA receptor is essentially 5 alpha helical proteins. And what this means is that those proteins, when there's downregulation of the receptor, those proteins, one or more of those proteins is affected to such a degree that it does not allow the receptor to do what it needs to do for inhibition, so you have greater excitation. What this is saying is the modification of those proteins, flumazenil, could help your body to synthesize the right proteins, thereby making the receptors work properly and GABA binds properly, and there's more inhibition, meaning less excitation. So that would be a good thing. So I have heard of one positive experience on Benzo Buddies. There was one person on there who attributes flumazenil to their basically to their healing. I don't know. I've heard some bad stories too, and I've heard stories where people took it and it had no effect. So as with any drug, it's very person specific. You don't know if it's going to help or hurt. On the face of it, it doesn't sound like a good idea to me because it blocks GABA. It's an antagonist. It blocks it. And that would be very much like doing it cold turkey. It would have the same effect. But I'm not a doctor. I'm not a neuroscientist or a molecular biologist. And I think it just boils down to being person specific. Whether, if you take it, you would hope that, it's going to help you or what. I can't really say one way or the other. There are pros and cons. For me, I probably would not mess with it really, knowing that. But when you're in withdrawal and you're suffering so much, I know that you think like, well, I will consider doing anything. Okay, this next one is anonymous. I'll go through it real quick. Okay, I'm still struggling, although there are improvements. Last summer, horrendous. This summer, after 17 months off Xanax, I feel at least that I am moving in the right direction. Still have a terrible bouts of dizziness, weakness, and fatigue. It's just awful. Also, need to keep my stress level as low as possible. Although with the life I lead, it's hard sometimes. First, I was wondering if you could just tell me this is not unusual, even after 17 months. I still worry that I'm damaged forever. My other question is to you, do you know of others who have taken a beta blocker to help with withdrawal? My blood pressure was soaring in the beginning, probably from withdrawal. I've taken a beta blocker for almost a year, has kept it under control, but when I go off, blood pressure increases again. You see, fatigue has gotten worse. Okay, small children fighting every step of the way for their sake. Okay, that's pretty much the content of it. Let me go back to the first question. First question is, okay, 17 months. Everyone is different. Okay, you're always going to hear that from me. At 17 months, I was close to being through the mental part, but I know many people who are at 17 months on later that's still struggling very, very much with a lot of symptoms. Even people who have been doing pretty well, especially when there's increased stress in your life, things that are hard to deal with. I don't know that it sets them back, but you're still very sensitive. A lot of people are at 17 months, and it has an effect, and it revs up your symptoms. It can make symptoms more intense than they had been earlier. So it's not, you're not damaged forever. Believe me, this is very common. 17 months is, for some, there's still a great deal of anguish and suffering. There just is. So it's not a sign that you're never going to heal or that you're damaged forever. It's just a symptom. The symptoms are all caused essentially by the same sort of thing. That's what my research has led me to believe, that the intensity and kinds of symptoms are not necessarily a function of how bad the damage is. I don't think that's true at all. Okay, my other question is, do you know of others who have taken a beta blocker to help with withdrawal? And the beta blocker is for blood pressure, basically. When I was in the hospital, and they were like cold turkey, my blood pressure skyrocketed. I remember it was 240 over 120 after about the first week and a half. It just was, every morning it was the same. And the thing would beep and flash, and they'd do it again and stay the same, and then that would be it. When I got home from the hospital, my blood pressure was huge. And I reinstated, tapered fast, and then it was high for a while after that, for a few months, but then it did settle down. Well, that's just me. That's just my experience. It's probably not everybody's experience, but a lot of people do take beta blockers. And I would, I'm not a doctor, but if your blood pressure goes back up when you get off of it, I would just, until the withdrawal was over, until the benzo withdrawal was over, I would just stay on whatever it is you're on. I don't know if coming off a beta blocker could increase anxiety, which could then increase um, your blood pressure. I don't know. I don't. But blood pressure is if it's something that people have trouble with that in withdrawal. That's for sure. I did early on, but mine straightened out after the first few months. Okay, and I think that takes care of the emails. They're pretty quick answers, but I'm at 25 and a half minutes, so that's all for now, I guess. Okay, it's Sunday. We got a week coming up here. I remember when I was in withdrawal, sometimes getting back into the week was more reassuring, that I knew that like the weekend's over. I don't have to think about the fact that I don't feel good like everyone else. I don't know. That was more of a psychological thing than anything. Anyway, I'm going to sign off for now. I hope to get back this week and do some of the acceptance, the spiritual part of acceptance and so forth. I want to talk hopefully a little bit about my wife and her experience, as she experienced what she was going through while I was going through withdrawal. I would love for her to get on here and do a video, but she gets all nervous talking in front of people. But this isn't exactly like, I mean, you're sitting in a room by yourself talking. It just seems a little weird. Maybe looking at herself might freak her out. I don't know. Anyway, I will talk at some point at the end of that part of my the spiritual part of this. I would like to talk about how she dealt with my withdrawal, what she did, where she went, because hers was very, very spiritual. It was almost like she didn't ignore my withdrawal, but it was sort of like that it was a way for her to distract. Maybe that's the best way to put it. Anyway, I don't want to get into that because I'm over 27 minutes now. So I'm going to sign off for now, and as always, I'm right here. Bye-bye.